Welcome to A2Council Update, a recap of the Ann Arbor City Council meeting on March 18, 2024. This meeting included comments and discussion about expressing support for park and ride lots on US 23, adopting anonymous hiring practices at City Hall, expanding the Greenbelt District and changing administrative process, and issuing capital improvement bonds to fund affordable housing. This is the voting chart for the council meeting on March 18, 2024. All agenda items were approved unanimously. You can find this voting chart and more information about this meeting at A2Council.com. Like and subscribe if you would like to see more content like this. The meeting included a presentation from Maura Thompson, Director of the Downtown Development Authority, or DDA. She shared data on how many people visit downtown.
So what we're looking for from this data is to see if we are making a difference in making our downtown more resilient in terms of activity. Post-pandemic, you can see that it appears that we're even more sensitive to that U of M schedule post-pandemic. Those peaks are higher and the dips are lower. And we think some of this is due to the fact that we no longer have that baseline of office workers in the daytime to kind of buoy activity when U of M is not in session. And you can see that pre-pandemic, our employment growth was rising pretty steadily. On the resident visit side, we were rising, but not quite at the level as those employee visits. And then in 2023, the whole thing flipped. The change in visits really shows how resident activity just continues to increase as employee visits decrease. And you can see that activity in the DDA has greatly surpassed activity at Briarwood Mall. The DDA district is up a total of 4%, and Briarwood Mall has decreased by 31%. And one could infer that free, abundant parking doesn't necessarily drive activity. So in looking at the shopping districts, generally we are trending in a very positive direction. The Main Street district has seen a 9% increase, State Street 14%, Southview 30%, and then Carytown has seen a decrease of 11%. But I want to point out that we dug into this a little bit deeper, and that area of Fifth Ave adjacent to the market and shops and the farmers market has not seen a decline. Outside of the DDA, Maple Village has remained flat, Arborland down 12.5%, and Arbor Hills is up 9%. But the combined change, you can see inside the DDA up 14%, outside the DDA down 5%.
In council comments, Lynn Song, representative from Ward 2, announced that she will not be seeking re-election. She was elected in 2020 and has served one term.
While it would be interesting to consider running for the school board as a sort of triple threat in local government, I've decided that I can be more effective organizing philanthropy and investing in affordable housing and justice work at both the local and state level.
Councilmember Song referred to investments her family has made since 2018, when her husband sold his tech company for over $2 billion. Lynn has personally given hundreds of thousands of dollars to various candidates and political action committees. In 2022, she gave $250,000 to Reproductive Freedom for All and co-chaired their petition committee. Lynn Song has endorsed John Malik, husband of State Representative Jason Morgan. He is currently the only candidate running for City Council to represent Ward 2. After introductory remarks, public comments, and staff explanations, Council discussed agenda items for about 25 minutes. 10 people signed up in advance to offer public comments. 1 person spoke to topics on the agenda. 4 commenters spoke about an ordinance banning gas-powered leaf blowers, which was unanimously approved by Council in December 2023. Representatives from Pittsfield Village, as well as their lawn and landscape contractor, spoke.
I've tested 3 top commercial units, the best you can buy, the most expensive. They basically run out of battery within 15 to 25 minutes at a time. So that creates an incredible challenge for us that can only be solved by following the employees around with some sort of gasoline-powered utility cart and swapping batteries every 15 minutes. They are significantly less powerful. And contrary to how they're advertised, the cost of these closest comparison devices are in excess of over $2,700 per unit, or roughly 4 times the cost of what we currently have.
We have large open areas and lawns and garden areas. And I want to point out that the village is probably the last neighborhood that is offering affordable housing within the city limits of Ann Arbor. We support the concept of eliminating gas-powered leaf blowers. However, the implementation of the ordinance as written will have significant and surely unintended negative impacts on the village residents.
Council may have commingled the energy efficiencies to be achieved with electric blowers at single-family residences with those of large, intentionally designed communities where the complexities of grounds maintenance may result in much smaller, if any, net gain on the energy front.
My major concern is that when we are trying to solve this problem, we actually are making it worse in the village. We're probably going to increase how much fossil fuels we're using, and this is often a problem. We have to take our time to look at actual effects when you're implementing.
The consent agenda this week included 8 items and expenditures of nearly $3.2 million. Nothing was pulled for discussion, but staff answered questions about one item. Staff explained a contract amendment for engineering, inspection, and surveying services for the State and Hill Street Improvement Project.
The majority of these construction services were originally slated to be performed by city staff, but we requested that Wade Trim quote this additional work so that those staff resources could be redirected to other projects. The project was split into 2 years so as not to impact U of M football traffic. This benefit to U of M has come at the extreme cost to our budget. To respond to that, the university was approached about cost sharing, but they did not offer to participate financially in the project.
The consent agenda was approved unanimously. Council considered second reading and final approval for ordinance amendments that will expand the city's Greenbelt district and change procedures for the purchase and sale of conservation easements and development rights within that district. In 2003, Ann Arbor voters approved an open space and parkland preservation millage, which funds the conservation of farmland and other open space adjacent to the city, as well as the acquisition of parks inside the city. At first reading on March 4th, City Council unanimously approved amendments that expand the Greenbelt District to include parts of Ypsilanti Township and other properties impacting the city's water supply. Other amendments removed a cap on administrative costs and granted the city administrator discretion to set aside the 2% limit on impervious surface within the Greenbelt District. Amendments further eliminated virtually all process around the city's resale of development rights. On March 4th, Council unanimously approved a new policy that development rights purchased with Greenbelt millage revenue could be sold back to private owners at the sole discretion of Council, and that proceeds from these sales were no longer restricted for Greenbelt millage purposes, but could be spent at the sole discretion of Council. This week, in response to community concerns, city staff offered a substitute ordinance, clarifying that where millage dollars have been invested, any proceeds related to those investments must be spent on purposes consistent with the millage. Staff offered additional changes, clarifying that development rights, once purchased by the city, cannot be bought back by the original owner. Council discussed the substitute ordinance for about 7 minutes.
I think it really demonstrates the amount of work, the effort, and care that staff and commissioners put into this.
Staff notes in the memo that they wrote for us that a water quality focus can also be the gateway to new funding opportunities from the EPA, which is great.
I think there was a lot of responding to different emails and from the community, and it's really great to see that sort of responsiveness come from staff.
Council unanimously approved the substitute ordinance at first reading. At a future meeting, it will be the subject of a public hearing and final approval at second reading. Council then considered a resolution expressing support for the development of transit options on US 23. At the council meeting on March 4th, the director of the Ann Arbor Transportation Authority presented recommendations for expanded park and ride on US 23 with large motor coaches to bring commuters into the city. This week's council resolution expressed support for those recommendations. Earlier in the evening, a public commenter spoke to the issue.
I want to thank you for backing the ride's alternative options on the US 23 project. What MDOT is proposing is quite simply bad all around.
Council made statements in support of the resolution for less than 5 minutes.
So the rides proposal is great. It looks at adding more park and ride lots and transit service up our along the US 23 corridor so that we can get people into the community who want to be here, but not in a single occupancy vehicle.
The resolution was approved unanimously. Council then considered a resolution directing new policy around city hiring. New policy would remove identifiers such as names, emails, and home addresses when applicants are considered for city jobs. City staff explained what they call anonymous hiring.
Anonymous hiring is done at the candidate screening stage or the initial review of an applicant's skills and qualifications related to the required qualifications of the job description. If you have legal name, prior preferred name, an email address, a prefix or a suffix, a photo, a physical address, or a phone number, all those give you little clues and allow your biases as an individual, because we all have biases, we just need to be bias aware, to come in and kind of start shaping your viewpoint before you have done any of the review process.
Language was added by friendly amendment without a formal vote.
I have one proposed amendment that I would ask that the clerk please share around now that would add and photographs to the list of potentially biasing information in the first resolved clause.
Council made statements in support for about 5 minutes.
It is designed to tackle implicit bias head-on, ensuring that employment opportunities reflect the diversity of our community.
Council unanimously approved the resolution directing city adoption of anonymous hiring practices. Finally, Council considered publication of notice to issue up to $9 million in capital improvement bonds for the city's Housing Commission to develop affordable housing. The bonds will fund a development at 121 Catherine Street, which will include 63 affordable housing units and 18 parking spaces. Revenue from the affordable housing millage will cover repayment of these bonds. Jennifer Hall, director of the city's Housing Commission, explained.
The city's ability to get lower interest rates actually enables that financing to go farther and enables us to utilize the millage sooner to get housing done quicker. It is impossible to build affordable housing without some kind of subsidy, whether it's land or lower interest or grants or anything that brings the cost down.
Ms. Hall explained details about annual revenue from the affordable housing millage.
The total amount is about $7.2 million, but a portion of that is for the overhead and staffing cost up front, and then that leaves about $6.5 million a year. But I've got 8 different projects happening at the same time, and so I actually have only the portion of this year available for Catherine, and so we would have to use everything that's available this year plus everything that's available next year to close that gap for that specific project, and not, I'd have to pull in every dollar I'm using on other projects to do it.
Revenue from the affordable housing millage was depleted significantly last year. In August 2023, City Council unanimously approved a transaction requiring the city's Housing Commission to buy a property already owned by the city. A previous council had designated the city-owned land at 350 South 5th as a building site for the development of affordable housing. The sale of 350 South 5th to the city's Housing Commission effectively transferred $6.2 million of affordable housing budget back into the general fund so that the money could be used for other purposes. This week, Council made statements in support of bond financing for affordable housing.
It's really important to have multiple things going on simultaneously because it takes so long to get the financing. And if you had to use that $6.5 million on any one project, that would push off for at least 2 years working on all the others. So thank you very much.
Thanks to the good work of council and most importantly staff and the commitment of the members of our commitment to converting Ann Arbor from one of the most economically segregated places in the country to one that better represents our values, better represents our aspirations.
Council unanimously approved the resolution directing publication of notice for the issuance of capital improvement bonds. The meeting adjourned before 8:45 without any further public comment. For more details about this meeting, visit A2Council.com.
Welcome to this week's A2Council Moment of Zen.
Thanks for working on this. Just applaud this work.
I wanted to thank echo Councilmember Dish's sentiments.
And I'd like to thank so many of my colleagues around the table who offered to co-sponsor that.
Thanks to the good work of council.
I'm so grateful for my colleagues at this table.
I just want to express how very, very grateful I am that she has sat at this table.
I am grateful. I'm just really grateful. I am very grateful.
I also appreciate the expertise and clarity that city leadership have demonstrated.
Thank you. I would just add that I appreciate Councilmember Harrison and Councilmember Iyer.
And I wanted to express my gratitude to Councilmember Ghazi Edwin as well, and to Councilmember Briggs.
You have my gratitude and my support.